Hey there guys, what's going on? It's Gail right here, back on the 5-9 channel with Waffles, and today we're going to be talking about Jujutsu Kaisen. It's finished its season. It was a 2-core, of course, so it spanned the cross of 2 seasons basically. So let us know down in the comments below how you enjoyed it, and leave a like if you'd like to see more. But before we begin, Waffles, a quick introduction of yourself.
Hi, I'm Waffles the Asian Yen Bear. I like shonen anime, and it was quite fun to watch this.
Of course, I mean, yes, of course, one must remember JJK was obviously a shonen show, of course. Quite surprising because sometimes it didn't even feel like a shonen show. But let us know again, like I said, down in the comments below, what do you guys think of JJK in comparison to any show you've watched, or just generally, how did you find it if it was your first show, potentially, who knows? And yeah, let's get right into it. Of course, Jujutsu Kaisen. This is a show that I was kind of a bit hesitant on in terms of the quality side of things, purely because I heard very good things about the manga. Don't get me wrong, I was looking forward to it because of the people saying that the manga was gas, and I'm personally about to start reading the manga myself now. But I'd been a bit concerned at the start of the season, purely because, well, I'm gonna jump straight into the crux of the matter, and that's Mappa. Mappa obviously are the studio that produced JJK, and of course they had a lot of shows on their plate at the time they were starting off the show. Obviously AOT is also under them, and they were starting to produce that show as well. The show was supposed to start, I think, a couple of weeks after JJK was first airing, and they had their own show, their original IP called Taiso Samurai, going on at the same time. So I was a bit concerned, and surprisingly my concerns were unfounded, at least regarding Jujutsu Kaisen. The consistency was phenomenal. I really enjoyed the animation, the fights, animation scenes, I should say. The music was on point, like in terms of the animations and the fight scenes that happened. The music and the fight animations were well choreographed, fantastic from my end and my perspective at least. And overall, I mean, just generally it was a joy to watch. Each episode got its duration. I feel like I didn't feel like it was cutting off too soon, cutting off too fast. The characters got the time they deserved, especially the supporting cast. In my opinion, I really enjoyed the supporting cast in this one. Overall, like I said, just consistency was on point for the show. Waffles, give me an idea on what you thought of this one.
Yeah, sure. Honestly, I think I was kind of in a different camp than you. I was not worried about the animation so much because I had heard like Tower of God they did. Oh, was it Tower? No, it was
No, it was God of High School. God of High School.
God of High School. I remember that the God of High School animation was fantastic, but I remember hearing that the story was awful. So I was like, okay, well the animation's gonna be good. I don't know about the story. We'll see what happens. And then I saw everyone recommending it, so I was like, okay, you know what? I'll start it. Sounds good. And then I just marathon through up until I think it was like episode 7 at that point. So I basically I went through, and it was great. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, our very own The Truth also enjoyed the show considerably, as he keeps going on about it on the 5-9 streams as well. And overall, as I said, it was an absolute joy to watch throughout. And I don't think I had a issue per se in terms of at least the quality and, like, as you mentioned, the story, which again was a potential concern. Like you mentioned, God of High School had a lot of issues, and that's where a lot of concerns started rising up, because God of High School was an abomination comparatively, right?
True.
Like it wasn't well handled, nothing was explained properly, and it was just chaos in that show. Whereas JJK, I felt like it wasn't like it handheld you throughout, but it explained it very well, to the point where I was like, I understood what was going on while also enjoying the story as well at the same time, right? Which was great. Of course, another thing I have to admit, I admired a lot, and these are general thoughts, of course. We'll start getting into the plot points in just a second. But the OP and EDs for both parts, part 1 and part 2, or the first half of the season and the second half of the season, in my opinion, phenomenal. I even personally gave ED of the year to them, personally, in my opinion. That was my favorite ED of the year, Lost in Paradise by Ali. Phenomenal. It even got ED of the year at the Crunchyroll Awards and Annie Trend Awards. So again, goes to show they did a fantastic job in getting the right musicians and bands as well as singers to do the OP and ED of the year. How did you find the OP and ED of Jujutsu Kaisen, Waffles?
Sure, I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I honestly liked the second ED a little bit more, mostly because of the animation side. Like I really like the style where they're looking through, okay, it looks like you're looking through a phone camera and you see all the friends interacting, and then it turns around and it's Yuji holding the camera, and I don't know, it was really heartfelt to me, and I thought that was good. So for me personally, I put ED for the second one for me being the best one, but I think they were both great.
I agree with you. That was also a very good point that you made there in terms of at least like connecting to the story and, you know, knowing how the supporting cast are, especially once you watch the rest of the second half of the season and whatnot. It definitely feels a bit more heartfelt, a bit wholesome, arguably, right?
Oh, we love our wholesome things here.
Yeah, we love our wholesome things on this channel, of course. So overall, I mean, I personally really enjoyed it. Now, of course, there are some things we need to discuss in terms of like our thoughts in comparing Jujutsu to other shonen. Before we, again, like I said, we'll get into the plot points in a second. Personally, I don't think it's an issue. I think it's fine for Jujutsu to take inspiration. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you know, Naruto and Kurama are basically Yuji and Sukuna, or vice versa, I should say, more so, because Naruto came before Jujutsu Kaisen. But, you know, Team 7 versus Team Gojo, technically, Team Gojo, and the Kyoto Goodwill arc versus the Chunin exam arc. There's a lot of similarities, and I understand that. But I think that's a lot of shonens in general these days. I feel like, I mean, not just shonen in general these days. I feel it's been shonens in general over the last couple of decades. We've seen shonens evolve over time, and that's what's happening here. We're seeing shonens evolve. I'm seeing Jujutsu Kaisen take from Naruto and Bleach the elements that they've taken and elevate them to another level, right? Like, I must praise Akutami for doing a fantastic job. What about you, Waffles? I know you were mentioning some stuff from like Bleach you noticed inspirations from. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, honestly, I never have a problem with something like that. I think if we look at something like, let's say, the isekai genre, because that evolved so quickly, where you have this base concept that starts, and then the popular ones build a foundation for other anime to then take inspiration off of, change it, maybe subvert your expectations on those different arcs, and then you end up with things we've got now with like reincarnated as a slime, like a ridiculous concept based on the foundation that was already built. And I think that like shonen does this over time a lot longer, and they don't change it nearly as much, but I think it's still okay. Like, I think the base formula works for most shonen anime. I think now we've gotten into the period of time where we're starting to see a few subversions, things like with My Hero Academia having Deku not being the well, he's got really good superpowers, but they have all the effects on his body that they do, and he's not one of those like super buff, I can fight everyone types, you know? And same thing
even Dr. Stone, take example of Dr. Stone, where Senku's intelligence is his power, right? It's not like he has super strength or anything of that sort, or any superpower per se, but it's how smart he is versus everybody else is what his power is, kind of, right? So I can agree with you on that. And especially even in this case, I would say even Itadori, he's not like exceptionally strong. Look at Gojo. I mean, like, he's ridiculously overpowered, at least in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, right? And you look at Itadori, yes, he has the power of Sukuna, but we know how Sukuna is in tandem with Itadori. They don't really go well together, for a lack of a better word, right? So yeah, I can see where you're coming from in that, and I completely agree with you. Like, I'm glad we're entering an era, and I'm seeing shonens. I'm glad that I've been part of this era where I've seen shonens evolve from Dragon Ball Z to the original big three of Naruto, One Piece, and Bleach, to what we have nowadays with, you know, Demon Slayer, simple but super straightforward and well received. JJK with obviously the story it has, Dr. Stone and obviously Senku's intelligence, MHA and its backdraws, quote unquote, with its main character in terms of like the effects he has on his body, where he's not super strong all the time. He can't be super strong all the time, right?
Yeah. And
so I can agree with you on that.
That with Demon Slayer as well, you have a character that cares for his enemies. Like, you have someone who is extremely sympathetic to everyone. And so like these are traits that you don't always see, where a lot of old shonen is I want to fight. And like even Yuji, like he seems to enjoy it, but it's not like he's actively seeking out fights all the time. the same
Yeah,
way.
agreed.
Like, yeah, like a Goku would, basically.
No, 100%, 100%. But let's get into the plot points now. Let's get into the key points and key fights we thought were really enjoyable and things that we'd like to uncover more and, you know, talk about a bit. And of course, we can't go any further than the introduction. Of course, immediately we had Gojo versus Sukuna. What do you think about this one, Waffles?
Yeah, I think it was good. I think it was very short, so it wasn't my favorite, but I think it sets a good tone for the rest of the series where you have Sukuna being built up as this really intimidating presence, like overwhelming, and then you just see him get smacked, and it's like, oh, okay, so like he's not gonna be the strongest one. He's not just gonna be the chosen, kills everything all the time type character. So I think
I agree. No, I completely agree with you. Sorry for cutting you off there, but it was a quick fight. I mean, I think it was. I mean, Gojo pretty much orchestrated it to see if what was Yuji's control over Sukuna's finger, right? Or at least one of his fingers, I think it was. And it was like a quick 10-second fight. It was ridiculous, but it was like, you know, a great way for them to initiate like our expectations from what the animation was going to be during the fight scenes, as well as seeing Gojo's powers, as well as seeing Sukuna's capabilities and his, again, control over Yuji, right? As well. So it was, in my opinion, a very well done fight. I think it was solid. I think it was a great introduction, in my opinion. We always see introduction fights, you know, Goku versus Raditz or Piccolo versus Raditz in Dragon Ball Z, Naruto versus Mizuki in Naruto, basically, right? There are a lot of introduction fight scenes. I think this is one of my favorites, to be honest.
Really?
I generally enjoyed it. I think like it was exceptionally short, like you said, but it set the pace really well at the same time. It didn't have to tell much, but it was one of those things that didn't say a lot, but said a lot at the same time, if you get what I mean, right?
Yeah, no, I get what you mean.
It didn't show much, but it spoke a lot, like what was happening, right? So that was definitely one of my favorites. I think the next fight we have to talk about, of course,
actually
is
Yuji versus Fushiguro in the Cursed Spirit, right?
That's one. Yeah, we can talk about that one. Yeah, we can go straight into that one.
Yeah, because I think that was the next one that we saw when they had to actually like test out Yuji and Sukuna, and Sukuna finally, like Yuji finally like tried cursed energy and was able to do it. But then like seeing Sukuna take over his body, and then I love the whole ultimatum with having just ripped his heart out. It's like, yeah, so I can just live. If he wants to take over, he's gonna die. So I'm gonna have some fun, and so I thought that was great. Like,
yeah, no, I agree. I think that was great as well, personally. I mean, I wasn't thinking of that fight, but that's actually a good shout. That was actually kind of good to see. I just
remembered it, to be honest, and like it sets the groundwork for Sukuna being interested in Fushiguro, and like which was interesting because it felt like it didn't pay off until the final couple episodes.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that obviously as we go on, of course. Then we saw obviously the introduction of Nobara, of course, to the team. And again, this is where I will say, like, this is another case of evolution from the originals. You know, we know a lot of people complain about Naruto's, and obviously Naruto's Sakura and her personality and behavior. Nobara, while similar in certain cases, I must admit I enjoy Nobara's character way more than Sakura personally, of course. And I don't know what you guys think in the comment section below, but of course we saw Yuji and Nobara versus Cursed Spirits, and it was actually good to see that they didn't have there wasn't that immediate chemistry, but they still knew to connect to each other well, while, you know, a lot of older shonens had this very common trope of like, oh, the teammates don't trust each other, and then they build that chemistry, whereas here, yes, they didn't have that immediate chemistry, but they still had that level of trust, quote unquote, right? To, you know, that this is the job, we have to work as a team to get these cursed spirits out, to exercise these cursed spirits, right? Yeah,
I think I can kind of agree with you there. There's for me, as far as the Naruto point, I didn't watch Naruto, so I don't know, but like I did enjoy Nobara. I feel like I wished for a lot of the season that she had more time to actually do fights, and because I think her style is very interesting to me, where it's using the hammers and using the straw doll techniques and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool. So again, we'll talk about that more as we get into her actual fight, but I think overall, I was happy with Nobara's character.
Yeah, I think the next thing we have to obviously talk about is Gojo versus Jogo, the big one.
Yes.
The first time we saw Gojo in his absolute best, arguably, in his domain, right? His domain expansion, unlimited void and everything. When he takes off his blindfold, I genuinely, like, I got a bit of chills then. I really did, honestly. That was phenomenal in my opinion. Like, the animation, him just pulling off his blindfolds and then crossing his fingers.
Yeah,
unbelievably.
Like,
what a joy to watch that episode.
Yeah, like, oh my god, just amazing. Like, this Jogo's here trying to fight him, and then he's like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna dip real quick and grab Yuji because this is a good lesson. Here, just hang out and watch. I'm gonna take care of this. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Like, I think this is where, like, I was like, yeah, this is what I'm interested. This, I've been completely engrossed by this one, right? This is where I got like, yeah, I like this one. I definitely like. I've been captured by the show now. You've got it for me, bro. You've got it for me. That was obviously one of the fights. Let us know in the comment section below what do you guys think of that fight, because I know this was the fight that I think that was the fight where I actually saw it blow up on Twitter, right? That was when I started seeing it like properly trending on Twitter. So great episode and a great fight scene in my opinion. And then of course we saw a early introduction of somebody we've come to, I think, enjoy a lot more, especially with recent episodes. Obviously it's you know, his relationship with Yuji in the latter episodes, and that's Megumi versus Toto. Of course, what did you think of this one, Waffles? I mean, it was pretty one-sided because obviously this was the first indication of a third-year student versus obviously Megumi, who's a first-year student.
Yeah, I think for me,
what did you think of this one?
Toto's introduction, I didn't really like him at first. Like, I would say he's one of my favorite characters now, but like him coming in, his introductory line was a little bit iffy, where it's like, okay, sure, whatever, you're gonna be that kind of guy, okay. And then like the fight's like, okay, he doesn't even use curse energy, just beats everything to death. And it's like, okay, I've seen this trope before. I'm like, fine, okay, whatever. And then like I thought the fight was kind of cool, and I thought I was more interested honestly in gosh, I don't even know his name, Salmon Rose guy with the voice, and I thought that was cool. I thought that's the first time we actually get to see his powers shown off, and I thought that was the best part of the fight for me.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, I'll still maintain, like, I agree with you on that. It was kind of, like, interesting to see. And for me, personally, it was more so seeing the gap between the students, as well as just generally, like, it was a combination of Gojo versus Jogo, as well as Fushiguro versus Toto as well. Seeing the gaps as they go along in their training, right? As they grow older and they move from year to year in the academy as well, and of course graduate down the line, you can tell how much more powerful they become afterwards, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing that, especially in the case of Megumi and potentially Nobara as well, when we move into potentially other future years, right? If they decide to go into future years, mind you, by the way, we are not really manga readers. Like I said, I'll personally be reading the manga soon. Again, I don't know about Waffles, but yeah, maybe, I just think like it's maybe. All right, there we go. We got a maybe from Waffles.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, no, it's just going to be very interesting to see like how and where they're going to go from here, right? Of course, then we move into the versus Mahito arc. Now, this is obviously, I want to talk about this arc as a whole, and then we can talk about obviously Itadori and Nanami versus Mahito. I think this was our favorite duo fight. This was my personal favorite duo fight until obviously later on. Obviously, we'll come on to that fight later on, the fight that I'm talking about. But what do you think about the fight against Mahito and Mahito in general as a villain? Because I know our chats and 5-9 streams like to call Mahito Midhito, but what did you think, Waffles, about Mahito and obviously the fights we've had in that arc?
I actually liked him. I wish that they had given him a little more time to understand more of his motivations. I think we saw some of it in different parts, and a lot of it's implied, but I think it would have been nice to spend a little more time with Mahito before the actual arc begins, because I think the arc was good. I like the arc a lot, and I think that the whole story with Yuji's friend being changed was really good. I love that. But I think that overall, Mahito I like, and I'm really interested to see more of. I think he's maybe one of the most interesting curse spirits that we have in this show. But I think early on with that whole arc, I think it would have hit even harder if we understood a little bit more about what Mahito actually wanted.
Yeah, I think this was the first time, obviously, I feel Yuji had to come to accept that. Up until now, it was kind of like, okay, I have Sukuna, but I don't fully understand how bad of a curse or evil of a curse I have inside of me. Until Mahito and Sukuna both laugh when Junpei dies, right?
Yeah.
I think that was the moment where Yuji was like, yeah, these guys are just evil curses. Like, I have to accept that. And when he goes into that rage, this was where the classic shonen kind of came into play, you know, oh, friend dies, power of friendship, I'm going to kill you now kind of thing came into play, but it was still well handled. I think, you know, Yuji kind of finally had to realize that, you know, what Mahito and Sukuna are actually. And yeah, the fight against Mahito was absolutely fantastic. But obviously in the end we know about what happened to you know, Nanami at the end, you know, in terms of like, you know, just as he's about to get slain, Yuji breaking into the domain. That was so well handled in my opinion, right? Well, what did you think of that, the whole thing of Mahito being able to touch his soul and Yuji breaking into the domain and stuff?
I thought that was perfect. I saw that episode a couple of different times because for different reasons, but I really enjoyed like that moment where it's like, okay, it kind of makes sense, the mechanics of it. Okay, this is so strong inside, they're not really gonna worry about reinforcing the outside because no one's gonna want to get into this. And so him actually being able to break into it made sense to me. And then seeing that, oh no, he touched Sukuna's soul, and then like that flash of, yeah, I warned you once, bye. And it was just, that was good. I really like those kind of interactions and seeing that, okay, you can't touch Yuji's soul because this is what's going to happen. And so for me, I thought that was really cool. And I liked right before that, the lead up to his domain expansion where he's just getting beaten down. I know I use that gif a lot because it's so
I think
good.
everybody uses that as a meme. Like I think the funniest one I know is, and I think this is the one that's also commonly used on Twitter, is literally, I think it's JJ, it's the portrait of like Yuji on Nanami, and I think it's Tanjiro on Yuji, and they're just beating the absolute shit out of Mahito and Mahito is Asta from Black Clover, and it's like, come on man, why are you doing this to the Black Clover fans out of all people, man? It's so funny, but it's a great meme. It's a great meme of them just trying to rain down punches on Mahito, and it's hilarious, man. I think it's a gif that's used a lot.
Yeah,
what's up?
Even without it being a meme though, it was still just a good like animation. It's a good scene. So like, I think that whole episode was fantastic to me. I really loved the lead up. I loved the domain expansion. It was amazing.
Yeah, and I think this is also going to be fantastic. It's kind of also the lead up to where Mahito is kind of sort of like this enemy that Yuji will even if he's not the end all be all big bad, he set him up to be at least the 1 second below that guy, because Yuji's now not gonna rest until he gets him, pretty much, right? Because of what happened to Junpei, which is obviously Yuji's friend, right? So that's also fantastic. And then we obviously move into the next arc, obviously, the Kyoto Goodwill Event arc, where this is where it's kind of like, okay, I can see why people start like to compare this to Naruto, because this is where it's sort of similar to the Chunin exams. Obviously, Waffles wouldn't understand that, but obviously, you guys, maybe in the comment section, I was about to say chat, god damn it, the comment section.
You've been streaming too much.
I've been streaming too much, but the comment section would have an idea on what I mean by this. And of course, this is where we see fights between all the students going up against each other, and having a team battle where it's Tokyo versus Kyoto, basically. And this was really enjoyable. What did you think of this one, this arc as a whole? And then we can obviously get into the end fight that I think became our favorite fight after the once we watched it, it became our favorite fight instead of the Nanami Yuji versus Mahito fight, right? What did you think of the arc as a whole?
I'll be honest, I think while I enjoyed the fights themselves, I thought I was a little bit frustrated with the arc because it felt like filler. For me, because they led up with the Toto versus Itadori fight, and then they cut away from it for like 5 episodes. And so like, it's as much as I enjoyed the actual fights themselves, I kept going, okay, I want to see the rest of the Toto fight though. and like it ended up kind of following the same formula as everyone would fight. It's like, okay, fight. Oh, now tragic backstory. Okay, so I was just kind of like, all right, I'll watch the fight, and then let's see what the tragic backstory is this week. So for me, as much as I enjoy the arc, I wish that the Yuji thing had been at least the Yuji and Toto fight had been completed first, and then we moved to the other ones. That would have been nice for me.
I think I'm of the opposite mindset for this one again.
Okay.
I personally enjoyed that. I agree with you that it would have been nice if it was left on its own potentially, instead of just starting off with that and then going to other people consistently and then coming back to it. Maybe if it was the last thing and we had just started off with, say, maybe, Mekamaru and Panda, or Nobara and Momo and whatnot. I think that would have been fine, but I do like that we at least got to see a couple of the sorcerers and the different powers, as well as a bit more backstory. Again, I want to see if it ends up being paid off at the end, especially down the line with maybe future seasons, or even the upcoming movie, which we'll talk about at the end of this, of course, at the end of this review. But I want to see how it matters as a whole, and in my opinion, I think I'm fine with it. I think this is one of the few times I'm just there. Like, I actually would have preferred this style than how the Chunin exams were in Naruto, where it was entirely, or for the most part, mainly focused on Team 7, which was Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. I would have preferred seeing the supporting cast and, seeing their fights, as well as just generally, what their powers are and the various powers, as well as just their backstories as well, personally. I enjoyed that, but I do agree with you on that one point, though. I do believe Yuji and Toto could have been its own full episode, like start to finish, rather than starting it off with it and then just cutting off to other people instead and then coming back to it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how I agree with you on that. It. Because it's like, I don't have a problem with learning about the characters. I don't have a problem with the fights they had. I thought they were cool. It was just because they had cut away from the Toto one, where I was just waiting to see, okay, I want to get back to this fight because this was so cool.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. And of course, we saw that, obviously, it wasn't that easy, obviously, for them to just have a casual, I say casual, Noritoshi was out to kill Yuji and, all that jazz instead. But we see Mahito decides to, just come back. And of course, we see the special Great Curse Hanami come in. And obviously, we see Yuji and Toto going up against Hanami. What did you think of that one, Waffles?
That one was great. I loved especially the beginning of their fight, when Toto's like, all right, I'm just gonna let you fight it. You need to learn how to get better. And then, like, he's getting angry, and then just the Toto slap is amazing. Like,
yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Just no, you need to not be angry right now. Go. It's like, all right. And I loved seeing Yuji's growth. I thought that was a classic shonen, where it's like, okay, he's getting better by fighting. Very cool. And then, like, once they actually team up and you see Toto using his technique to switch back and forth, that was another really good showcase of the animation as well. And so, yeah, the whole fight with them, amazing.
I agree. And I mean, it was the first introduction of the Black Flash attack as well, which looks sick. I mean, it's a quick, snappy thing, but it's such a cool, like, thing, because what was it? It was like a cursed energy that is applied within, like, 0.000001 seconds of a physical. I don't know if I got the number of zeros right, but hopefully I did. It was 1/1,000,000th of a second. I don't know if I got the number of zeros right, but you know what I mean. It was a sick introduction, and I think overall, I enjoyed the arc. It kind of showed how much the headmasters of the schools of the schools are a bit scared of Yuji, kind of, especially, I think it was Gakuganchi, I think is his name, the headmaster of Kyoto's school. I think we can see, like, their fear of, like, oh, what if Sukuna takes over Yuji's body, kind of thing, right? I don't think they want that to happen, and they're like, oh, we need to go out of the way. So I like that dynamic, like, Yuji is kind of still a good guy, but there's still the fear from the upper sorcerers that, we can't let this guy, roam free, because something bad could actually happen. What do you think of that, like, whole dynamic as well?
Yeah, I thought that was good, because I think that's what makes sense given the world and given that they don't know Yuji. And so, like, they just see him as Sukuna. So seeing them have to learn from that and grow from that point was nice. But I do have one question as far as the headmaster goes. Did you expect to see the electric guitar? Because I did not expect to see the electric guitar.
That wasn't. I was surprised at that. Some of the, like I said, some of the equipment and powers in this. That's why I said I loved this arc, because it just gave us so many cool things in terms of, you know, powers and abilities, and, you know, how they are, especially stuff like you know, Mechamaru as well, the guy who controls the robot. My man's in like liquid, fully amputated, and he's able to control this sick robot. Like, how cool is that? Like, I think there's some stuff, like even the headmaster using the guitar, bro. That was phenomenal. I 100% feel you on that one.
Did you enjoy Mechamaru, the pitching machine?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed that as well. That was great, man. The baseball thing was phenomenal. I enjoyed that so much. Like, let us know in the comment section below what power did you like the most, or ability, jujutsu you like the most. And yeah, I enjoyed the whole that whole event was an enjoyable arc, in my opinion, personally.
I agree.
Let's move into the final arc that happened in the show. Of course, episodes. I think it was only the last 3 episodes that effectively covered this, right?
Yeah. Something like that.
And of course, it was all 3 of them versus the Cursed Fingers and the Jojo characters, like you affectionately call them in our outline. How did you find those fights?
I was really happy. Less so about with Yuji, because like I felt like that was kind of the normal thing for Yuji, but for seeing the other 2 characters, Fushiguro and Nobara, being able to Nobara, thank you. Nobara actually being able to do things, like especially Nobara seeing that the extent of her powers, because she's not really had a good chance to showcase her fights. Like, at least Fushiguro has had a couple moments where you can see what his growth, but for her especially, it was nice to see her actually get to do something. And so seeing first Fushiguro trying and actually doing the domain was really cool. And then the resonance thing Nobara did was amazing. So yes, I was really happy with this arc. I think that it was short and sweet, but in the fight was the main payoff, I think, for me.
Yep, I agree with you on that one as well. I love also how Megumi managed to, you know, manifest his own domain expansion. And we also kind of saw the his kind of backstory as well with his parents and whatnot as well, which was cool. In my opinion, I think it was great to watch like Nobara and Megumi get a bit of action on their own behalf. And obviously it also left a lasting impact. We have to remember, right? Because this episode, the last episode, episode 24 with Yuji and Nobara especially, once they killed this is the first time they actually killed, right? The 2 brothers. This is, instead of exercising these curses, they've had to actually kill them. And this kind of reminded me of Demon Slayer, obviously Tanjiro, you know, feeling remorse for his enemies more so, you know, once they die and they kind of realize, you know, they had a life before as well that just went wrong, right? And it's the same thing here. Like, this is the first time they've had to actually, or one of the, one of the first times, Yuji's 2nd or 3rd time, I think this was. And, you know, this is like something they believe. Nobara said this will happen, or this was bound to happen, but they agree that they're accomplices in the murder of the 2 brothers, right? So yeah, it kind of was nice to see, like, them kind of, like, it was good to see all 3 of them again. As I said, they had already had good chemistry since the very beginning, but we could see their chemistry evolve to the point where they know each other really well. And even in the end, like, you know, they had the whole connection of, like, we can't tell Yuji something specifically because of Sukuna, and so, and vice versa as well. They still had stuff hidden from each other, but at the same time, they had a level of trust still. What did you think about that as well? The last couple of minutes, pretty much, of the show.
Yeah, no, I think the last couple of minutes were good. I think for me, for Nobara's reaction there, it made sense, but I think the more impactful part for me was when she realized that the cursed spirit wasn't disappearing and it was a person, because it was very quick, but you realize it's like, oh no, I just killed someone, and like you have that momentary reaction, and then we continue on. And I feel like Yuji's a kind of a special case where he still feels so much pain for killing people, and Like all the others are just like, nope, they were cursed. We had to do it. And I think that they've all come to terms with it except him, which puts him in an interesting place in the worldview. But I think especially that moment that you were talking about where they're like, okay, we can't tell Yuji because of Sukuna, and then we immediately cut to Sukuna telling him. It's just hilarious. Like
that was funny. That was too good.
That was really good. And so yeah, for me that was great. I kind of wish we had more of that throughout the series, where it was Sukuna kind of just causing problems for Yuji. A lot of times he's just been hanging back, which makes sense after he made his pact, but I think it would have been nice to get more of the taunting bit, because I feel like their chemistry is really good.
Yep, and to round us off, of course, we saw that they finally closed the case, and Gojo decides to pay Mei to promote his students, and then her and Toto basically recommend, I think it was Yuji, Megumi, Nobara, Maki, and Panda to grade 1 status, which I think it was a good place to, kind of wrap it off. And then we obviously saw, like they had a mission, Gojo had a mission for them while I was gonna say they were shopping for themselves. They were shopping for Nobara more so.
Nobara was shopping. They were carrying.
Yeah, they were just carrying her bags. Yuji was carrying her bags. Megumi was just walking along. But yeah, it's good to see that, and I'm looking forward to season 2, man. This is gonna be very exciting. But before we get season 2, and we'll obviously talk about the movie in a second, just likes and dislikes. Do you have anything specifically that you have in mind, before we go into a bit of a wrap up regarding the season 2, our thoughts on what we could see in season 2, and of course the movie as well?
Yeah, overall, I think this was really solid. My only dislike was that we didn't get a lot more Sukuna and Itadori together, just because every moment that they interacted was amazing to me, really funny a lot of times. And so I would have liked to see more of that, especially like, okay, the moment, and I guess we didn't really cover this too much, but where Yuji was in Sukuna's domain after they had died, that little like, okay, we'll fight for the deal, and then he just dies. It's like, okay, yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, that was good. That was fantastic. Any thoughts on a best fight and favorite character from yourself?
Best fight, the Mahito with plus Nanami and Yuji fight was my favorite one for sure.
Yeah.
All of them were great though.
Yeah, I agree. And favorite character? Let's see.
Favorite character, probably Toto now. I think once we had the flashbacks to the middle school where he supposedly went to school with Yuji, but he didn't actually, and knowing that he's just insane is amazing. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I didn't like Toto at first, but once we got a little bit more, yeah, he's my favorite now.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know, off the top of my head, I mean, I can agree with you on the whole Sukuna and Itadori thing of like maybe a bit more communication between the two to see like maybe a fight between ideals kind of as well, but I hope to see that more in maybe a future season. I think it'll be present. Obviously, we saw kind of a bit of it at the end of the season, and just throughout the season, I think we saw bits and bobs of that. Hopefully we see more. But apart from that, I don't think I have anything particularly to complain about. I think you guys in the comments might be able to, give your thoughts on some things you may have not liked in the show. But overall, in terms of best fight, I personally enjoyed Toto and Itadori versus Hanami. Personally, everybody versus Hanami, that was great. And then, of course, my favorite character has to be the boy Gojo. Bro, he's so good, man. Especially, I think one of my favorite scenes, I must admit, and I know we didn't touch upon a lot of the, in-between scenes and stuff, but one of the filler scenes that I really enjoyed was Megumi talking to, like, some random girl in the streets, and Yuji's thinking he's being hit on, and he goes and gets Nobara and Gojo, and it's the funniest. It was a great scene. It was such a funny scene. And, yeah, let us know in the comment section below. What, sorry?
That was in one of the endings, right?
And I think it was one of the endings, or it was like episode 23, I think, or 22, 22 or 23. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not sure if it was one of the endings, though. Don't remember off the top of my head, bro. It's been a month. How do I have such short-term memory? But I think it was one of the. I know it was in the more recent episodes, though. But yeah, let us know in the comment section down below favorite fighter and favorite character. We'd love to see you guys think up of something. I mean, we've asked you a lot of questions now, I think, of course. But let's get. I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys say, of course. Let's get into a bit of the overall thoughts, of course, in terms of, like, what do we expect from... Well, we'll start off with the movie, because we just got a movie announcement today, at the time of this recording. Today, literally, we got the announcement for Jujutsu Kaisen 0, a movie representing volume 0 of the series. Now, this indicates to me, obviously, personally, as I said, I haven't read a lot of the manga, but I do know it's covering a bit of Gojo's history as well as some stuff with Yuta and Maki as well, from what I know a little bit. But what do you expect from it? Assuming it's a prequel, what do you think we'll see, Waffles?
I think if it's a prequel, I would assume that we're going to get more about the Cursed Spirits plan, and I'm not great with names, so I'm trying to remember who's who, but I think we'll see more about the one instructor that turned away and was the traitor, essentially. Not the traitor as in the secret one, but the one that's hanging out with the Cursed Spirits, has the little scar. I think we'll see more about that. Maybe we'll see more about the year before with they mentioned a little bit more with the whole exchange festival last year, where there was a whole bunch of stuff happening. I think a lot of Cursed Spirits got released. I think we'll see that as the main part of the actual movie for me. That's my guess.
I can agree with you. Let us know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? I mean, that's pretty much what we can literally talk about, because otherwise it would kind of be spoilers for volume 0, because as I said, we don't know much. But if we do guess, I'm personally guessing some stuff regarding Yuta and Gojo and Maki, probably something like maybe a year, like you said, kind of like a year or a year and a half beforehand, maybe, give or take, if not a bit beforehand as well. But yeah, let's go on to season 2, because that's something we have a bit more control over in terms of what to expect, right? Where do we go from here, Waffles? Where do we go from here?
I think we continue to see the curse plan being laid out more. We see Yuji eating more cursed fingers, but what I'm mostly interested in is seeing Fushiguro's growth, because I think he's the big wild card here.
Yeah, I think the interest from Sukuna into him makes me think he's a lot more vital than people may assume he is, right? We think obviously we know Itadori is obviously the poster boy. He's got Sukuna in his body, but we don't know how much Fushiguro is gonna have an involvement in it, right?
Exactly.
And also, it's gonna be very interesting to see, because Gojo is so powerful as well. I'm interested to see if the plan of the Cursed Spirits might be to neutralize Gojo somehow. If you think about it, right?
Their plan. They're trying to seal him at some point.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's gonna I should have phrased that better. It's gonna be interesting to see how their plan is going to be executed, right? Like you said, it's more so like I should have phrased that more properly. My bad, guys.
No worries.
But it's more so I want to see how they're gonna execute it, because it's not. I mean, looking at the man, it's kind of difficult to do that, right? I wonder if they're going to use something from his past potentially. Like, that's why I think Volume 0 is going to have a much more, a bit more of an impact than one may think it might have, right? Is what my personal opinion is. Like, I think that's going to be super, super key to what may lead into season 2 or something, right?
That's a great point, honestly.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. It's gonna be very interesting. But yeah, I think, I mean, you know what? Let's give it a grade. I think I will give this season a solid 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Like, it was very solid overall. I think, you know, a couple of niggling issues here and there, but I mean, like I said, it was nothing like I wanna scream about on Twitter or anything of that sort. It was really enjoyable throughout, and like, I wouldn't say it's perfection. I think I've given very few shows like a 10 out of 10 score. I think it's like 1 or 2 probably tops. But yeah, that's my aim. What about you, Waffles? Any grade you want to give it, or just any final thoughts?
I might give it a little bit lower. I'm gonna say 7.5, not because it's necessarily bad, but because I think for me it has to be higher if it hits me emotionally, and none of these really hit me in the feels that much.
Gotcha.
Except for maybe his friend Junjo dying.
Junpei, yeah, I agree.
Junpei. Yeah, see,
that's fair.
I'm not even attached enough to remember the names. That's the problem for me. Like, I think
no, that's understandable. Yeah.
It's a solid show. I didn't cry. So that's the problem.
Hey, fair enough. Let us know down in the comment section below, what do you guys think? Hopefully you guys enjoyed Jujutsu Kaisen as much as we did, and hopefully you all are looking forward to the movie as well as the potential season 2 that we might get after the movie as well. We will be back probably tomorrow for a weekly roundup, or potentially later on for an AOT review. Be on the lookout for that. But it's been Gale Wright and Waffles. We're gonna sign out. Leave a like, and of course subscribe for more anime reviews and content. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.